Hey, everybody, welcome to Plant Prescription, the official houseplant podcast from Costa Farms. Here today, you have Michelle. She is a senior IPM manager for the company. That means she tackles all manner of insects and disease problems, keeping plants looking lush, lovely, and healthy. I'm a horticulturist, so I do pretty much everything else. And we're here to answer plant questions, hopefully make you laugh a little bit, and do some education. How's the day, Michelle?
It's going really well. It's going really well. I'm just watering everything, and I have like a trail of things to up pot. It just never ends, and it's going good though. Everything's pretty happy, including myself. How are you doing?
Excellent. I'm doing fantastic, thank you. I am looking forward to fall. When the days get shorter, my plants are going to get a little less thirsty, so I don't have to keep on the watering quite as much.
Yeah,
It's been a little bit of busy summer, and some of my plants are telling me that they're not happy about that.
they're over it, huh? They're over summer.
Yeah, yep. Or they're just over me not watering them enough.
Yeah, irrigation, man. We gotta get you set up with an automatic irrigation system. I think you're at that point now.
Yeah, yeah, I
Just put
kind of
everything
feel like
outside for
it.
the summer, forget about it.
Yeah, I used to do that when I was in Des Moines,
Yeah.
Iowa, and every fall it would be, okay, frost is coming. I need to bring plants inside. And
Hmm.
every year I told myself, okay, I'm going to do it systematically and do like 3 or 4 plants a day leading up to frost. Never actually happened.
No,
Um,
the
and
night of,
and
right?
yep, yep, it would
Yep.
be like 10, 11 p.m. Like one night because back in the day, like I was really into my saving my tropicals. And I remember once there was like a path through my living room, and the rest of the living room was entirely filled with pots and fallen leaves because I had started to clip back and I realized, nope, I don't have time to clip everything back tonight and get them all in.
And then you would bring in like slugs and just like
Uh-huh.
dirt. It'd just be everywhere. Oh gosh, I remember that.
Yep.
I didn't
Scrubbing the hardwood floors like 6 times
uh
afterward before they finally feel clean. Yeah.
fun times, fun times. I haven't I fortunately have a basement, so everything goes into the basement, out of sight, out of mind, and then I deal with it. But when I lived in Miami, we had hurricanes a few times. Now, fortunately, not
Hmm.
many times. But in those scenarios, I had to bring everything inside because it's a hurricane, and I didn't want my plants to just. I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking that they would just get sucked up in a tornado and like disappear like Dorothy. But I brought all my plants inside, and it was a very similar scenario. And in my defense, you usually don't have that much time. Like winter, you kind of know it's coming. With a hurricane, you don't. So in my defense, that was why. But I same thing. It was just like plants everywhere, but
All
they were
out
safe.
panic.
Yeah, a
Yep.
panic. Just in the bathtub, in the bedroom, in the kitchen, just everywhere. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Yep.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll be better at that this year. Maybe.
I have the greenhouse
Maybe.
now, so
Oh,
that makes my life much, much easier.
yeah. Basement.
My
So,
living room is
yeah.
so much cleaner.
Yeah. 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 All right.
Uh,
What are our questions for the day?
all right, number one comes from Mary in Westfield, New York. I want to trim my Baltic Blue Pothos, but I don't want to hurt or kill it. Do you have any tips? So, I find this interesting that there's a lot of apprehension and maybe even outright fear about pruning houseplants.
Yep.
And this might come from the fact that outdoors, like your spring blooming shrubs, if you prune them at the wrong time of year, you'll cut the developing flower buds off, so you won't get new blooms the next year. But
Been there.
it's much harder to mess up your houseplants in that way.
Hmm.
And so, in general, you don't need to be nearly as afraid of pruning as I think a lot of people are.
I
Um,
agree.
my number one rule for pruning is never remove more than 25% of the leaves at one time because, it's a big shock on the plant. Um, but otherwise, I don't really have a one size fits all fear or guideline for pruning. It's just, okay, this plant needs it. It's getting too big. I don't like the way this branch is going, off it goes. And I never have to worry about whether that's going to impact the overall health of the plant.
I am a very aggressive pruner. I like full big plants, and so I tend to aggressively chop. When you said 25%, it kind of made me cringe a little bit. I've chopped all the way down to 50+% in certain situations. But then again, I know, the plants were really big, and if I lost some, I lost some. Anyway, Justin is correct. I would not do what I do. Do what I say, not as I do, kind of thing. One of the plants that I love to chop and prune back and kind of re-stick it in the soil is my begonia maculata. Um,
Yes,
yeah, you know where I'm going, because that plant, I love it, but if you don't prune it, it can get really leggy, and some people are okay with that. Some people like that look. That is not me. I'm not a fan of that look. So when it starts to get a little like one stalk starts to lean a little bit or gets a little out of control, I kind of just chop it below the node, and I either propagate it in water or stick it directly in the soil. And wow, that plant is beautiful and full. And so with your Baltic blue, I would recommend doing that. Um, and you're not gonna kill it if you don't chop it right at the base of the soil. You're not gonna kill it. And if anything, it's gonna flourish more for you. It's gonna be more full. And you're gonna have, or more of it to play with, whatever.
exactly. So don't be afraid to cut it back. Um, an inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, depending on the length of the vine there. Um, Michelle is smirking.
10 inches, the whole plant. I'm just so reckless. It's so bad. Yes, couple of inches. Just play around with it in the beginning, like Justin said. Don't go crazy.
Yeah, and it's kind of a great pothos in general are great starter plants if you do have an apprehension about pruning,
Yeah.
because they respond really well and pretty quickly to it. Whenever you pinch part of a plant off, it spurs new growth, and so in general, I feel like Michelle
No,
is
no, no,
looking for, but
no.
what abouts?
I know. I'm sorry. I know I was distracting there for a minute. I had a thought and I had to process the thought. When you do trim, just make sure your scissors or whatever you're using are somewhat clean, because you don't want to introduce anything into that plant tissue that you are cutting. I don't. I'm not saying you need to sterilize it, although it wouldn't be a bad idea to sterilize it. A little isopropyl spray. We all have so much of that on hand nowadays, I bet. But a little isopropyl spray or something, or even I just washed it under the kitchen sink, a little soap and water. Just the thought, just if you are trimming and if you're nervous, just try to use a clean utensil to trim it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Michelle.
Yep.
Uh, Question number 2 comes from Mira in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Is it true that having lots of houseplants attracts spiders?
I feel like I need to plead the fifth on this one because everybody hates spiders. Maybe. I've honestly never really given it that much thought. However, I will say I have quite a lot of plants and I have quite a lot of spiders. I don't know if the plants are causal or if it's just coincidental. Um, Justin, you also have a lot of plants. Do you have spiders? Do you think you have more
I don't.
spiders?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I don't think, yeah, as Michelle said, it's not a cause-effect relationship, but plants can provide habitat,
Yeah.
a place where spiders maybe feel more comfortable to build their nests or webs. And so if there are spiders in your house, they may be more attracted to the plants than dispersed throughout your house like they might be. Um, so yes, kind of, but not really.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, one thing I will say though, for sure, is what we were talking about in the beginning of this is bringing plants inside. In the fall, you are likely going to be bringing in some bugs, and there's a very good chance that there are some spiders on those plants. So in that scenario where they're outdoors and it's just like a free-for-all environment, yeah, you may be introducing some spiders or something. Always treat your plants when you bring them in. I feel like we need to do an episode on that because it's coming. Treat your plants when you bring them in. But I I agree with Justin. I don't, spiders aren't feeding on the plants. They do provide some habitat if there's food available, right? So if
Yeah, I
you,
was just going to ask you about that.
what?
Um, Spiders are predators.
Correct?
If you don't have much of an insect population
Yes.
in your home, can you sustain spiders? Like, do they eat
Um,
other things as well?
each other.
Or,
So if you, I mean, yes, they will eat each other. Very,
and Michelle just made the fear of spiders that much more intense for so many of you now, thinking not only are they scary, but they're also cannibals.
well, there's a really sad anecdote that's between spiders and wasps. I just saw a story on Facebook and I was horrified. Um, okay, I'm going to tell it.
Wait, do we need a little listener warning?
Yeah, listener warning. This is like the equivalent of a Swiss horror movie, which I don't know why I think Swiss horror movies are always scarier than other movies. I don't know. I don't watch horror movies, but this is very, if it was like people, it would be horrifying, but it's not. It's insects. And I honestly think a lot of horror movies come from entomology. Okay, so you've been warned. If you're squeamish or if you just feel for the spiders, here we are. So one of my friends posted on Facebook recently a photo of a spider missing all of its 8 legs. And
Oh,
yeah, gruesome, gruesome. Still alive, but missing all of its appendages. I guess there's a couple of wasps. I don't know of which ones, but there's a wasp out there that will paralyze spiders, remove its appendages, and take it back for its offspring to eat. Um, I don't know why this popped in my head. We were just talking about spiders, and this is something that's sticking in my mind. It's so horrible. I feel so bad for the spider. Um, but I mean, people hate wasps, they hate spiders. You can't win. In this scenario, it's like a celebrity death match, right? You've got wasp versus a spider. So if you see those, odds are the wasp was spooked and flew away, but it will likely be back to carry its trophy home. So if you see that, that's probably what's happening there. Uh, I'm really not making anybody like spiders or wasps by saying that, am I?
all right. So maybe we should move on to question number three.
Yeah, let's do
Happier
it.
territory. All right.
Okay.
This comes from Emily in Davenport, Washington.
Hmm.
I've never had luck growing aloe vera. What are your tips to be successful with it finally?
Uh, Fun. So I have an aloe vera I got from a friend and I put it in full sun and it's doing very well. It does burn a little bit when I first put it out every year, but it grows extremely well. I also keep mine in a terracotta pot because they do like to dry out a little bit. Now they do like to be watered, but they like to dry down in between the waterings. I think a lot of people are nervous to water succulents, but they do like to be watered. They just like to dry down in between that. What do you think?
It's tough to speak specifically without knowing why she's not had success with aloe vera in the past. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I would immediately go to the two places you went. Make sure it gets enough light. Aloe vera has a reputation for being one of those super easy plants that anybody can grow, and because it can go so long without water if it needs to. And I think that because it has that association, it's also sort of subconsciously grouped in with plants like ZZ and Sansevieria that, oh yeah, it's so easy, nobody can kill this. But it is not a low light plant. It won't be happy in low light conditions.
No.
Um, the other thing is making sure that it doesn't get overwatered because it is a succulent,
Mhm.
especially if it's in low light, it's easy to rot it out.
Yes. I agree. Yep,
I
absolutely.
I have rotted aloe vera before.
Oh, huh. I haven't had enough of them to do that yet, but give it time.
So water and light are the two biggest things. More light, possibly less water, but making sure that they are well watered when you do.
Yes, agreed, agreed.
One of the fun things about aloe vera, once you get it going, because we usually see like the small pots that are like this big, um, but they can get to be really good size. I had one back when I lived in Iowa that it must have been like the diameter from leaf tip to leaf tip must have been about 18 inches.
Whoa.
Yeah, the individual leaves were like daggers. They were really good size. And so keep it happy, keep it going, and it can be quite a staple plant.
Yeah, yeah. My aloe right now, it's very stabby. It's got those little spines on the edges of the
Yep.
leaves, and I can't touch it. It's one of those plants, it's like, can't touch this. It's just really gruesome. It's quite mean. And it's very large and it needs to be out potted, but frankly, I don't want to get close to it. I don't want to touch it. Um, there you go. Anyway, so with aloe, I agree with Justin. Make sure you let it dry down in between waterings. And I would agree to give it as much light as you possibly can.
So aloe, the best thing to do, make sure it gets plenty of light, make sure it's not overwatered, but that you do water it well when you do.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right, moving on to our misconception.
Okay.
Um, Houseplants need a special fertilizer. You can't just use any old fertilizer.
Oh, I love this one. No. um, so I really like big plants, and I really enjoy growing big plants. A lot of my friends have asked me how I do it. And they are always under the impression that they have all this fancy, expensive fertilizer. It's like boutique fertilizer, is what I would say. And I don't use that. I use the basic fertilizer that you could find pretty much anywhere. I've never really used fancy fertilizer because it's expensive. And I found that I don't need it. I'm able to grow big, healthy, giant plants on regular old fertilizer. I would recommend if you want to grow big plants, though, you look for something with a 20-10-20. That's NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Those are the three numbers that you see in the front of any fertilizer. It's NPK. So 20-10-20 is 20. I just lost my train of thought. 20 nitrogen, 10 phosphorus, 20-10-20 potassium. Oh my gosh.
Yep,
Yes.
you're right.
Wow. I can't jump back and forth between numbers and names like that. Anyway, I would recommend a 20-10-20. Bigger numbers, bigger plants, kind of. I'm oversimplifying
Although,
this. I'm
yeah,
super
yeah,
oversimplifying it.
the bigger the numbers, the more careful you have to be not to over fertilize as well.
Correct. Agreed. Yes. That's why sometimes organic fertilizers are, generally speaking, kind of like safer if you're nervous about that. But again, I would just say with any fertilizer, just read the label, and try to stick to the label. But
Yeah, in general, any fertilizer that says it's labeled for use on houseplants can be used on houseplants. Um, you don't need a special philodendron fertilizer. You don't need a special African violet fertilizer. You don't
nope,
need a special, anthurium fertilizer.
nope.
Um,
The one
but
exception being orchids. I would be a little cautious about that one.
yeah, and with orchids, I mean, you can even use the general purpose houseplant fertilizer if you dilute it a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, okay. I
With
never
that,
have.
yeah,
I'm
with
really
with that
horrible
it's
with
more, yeah.
my orchids, so yeah, I don't take my advice on orchids. So I'm not allowed to talk about orchids. Um, but one thing I want to add to the fertilizer, no, you don't need a special one. What Justin was saying, any fertilizer that's labeled for houseplants would work. Read the label. But one thing I want to add, is I recently have started trying out humic acid and mycorrhizae, and I found that it does a really good job with the roots and the health of the plant. So if you want to start trying that, I would try it out again with all those things. Read the label, especially on the humic acid. Um, you don't want to damage your plants because it is an acid. But there's a lot of formulations out there now that are safe and well tried on plants. If anybody does try that out and find something that they really like, let me know because I've started trying that out and I'm starting to see some really good results, like dark green leaves. And I'd be curious to see what everybody else thinks on that.
Nice. I have not tried that, but it's an interesting one to experiment with.
Yeah, especially on tomatoes this year. They did really, really, really well, which isn't houseplants at all. But tomatoes typically are like nutrient or fertilizer pigs. They need a lot of feed. And I
They
was
are
able to
heavy, heavy
cut,
feeders.
yeah, I was able to cut that down by incorporating like a granular humic acid into the soil. And they were dark green plants. It was really cool. So try it out. Let me know what you think. Be curious to see what everybody's thoughts are on that and if there's one that you guys like, because I want to try it out myself.
Alrighty, thank you everybody for listening to Plant Prescription. As always, if you have a question you'd like us to talk about, drop us a note. You can do it via email. You can do it via social media DMs. We're on pretty much most of the social media channels these days. We look forward to hearing from you.
Bye bye.